Today, I'm going to teach you all how to build a sourdough starter from scratch for beginners. But before we get started, what is sourdough? Sourdough is bread made by the fermentation of dough using wild yeast. Lactic acid from fermentation imparts a sour taste and improves keeping qualities. Your next question might be, why make sourdough? Isn't the bread harder to make and you have to keep up with the starter? Well, the bottom line is sourdough is a healthier alternative to regular white or whole wheat bread. Although it has comparable nutrients, the lower phthalate levels means it's more digestible and nutritious. The prebiotics also keep your gut bacteria happy. To get started, you will need a glass jar, a wooden spoon, a scale, flour, and water that must be non-chlorinated. For the first day of making your starter, you're just going to measure out 60 grams of water and 60 grams of flour. Put this into your glass jar, stir it up, cover it with a breathable cloth like a paper towel, and then secure it with an elastic band and set it in a warm spot on your counter. Let me know in the comments below if you also make a mess with your flour while baking, no matter how hard you try not to. For some days, I use a rubber spatula to stir my sourdough starter, which you can use as well. I like to use it because it's easy to get the sourdough starter off the sides of the jars. Once you've mixed your ingredients together, the consistency should be like thick pancake batter. For day 2, you're not going to do anything with your starter. Just leave it in your warm spot in the kitchen. You may notice some bubbles, and this is completely normal. For days 3, until your sourdough starter is ready to make bread with, you're going to discard half of your starter, add in 60 grams of flour and 60 grams of water. Then cover and leave in the warm spot in your kitchen. Do not throw away those sourdough discards. Put them in another jar, put a cap on it, put it in the fridge, make sure it's labeled, and down below I will share some of our favorite recipes to use your discards in. For day 4, like I said, follow the same instructions as day 3. The only thing that I did different here was I decided to move my sourdough starter to a bigger jar. So I moved it from a pint jar to a quart jar. I also like to stick to wide mouth jars when it comes to sourdough starter. It's easier to get your ingredients in, and it's also easier to get utensils in to stir. The only thing I did differently for day 5 was I started marking a line on my jar so I could track how high my sourdough starter was rising. Your sourdough starter can take anywhere from 7 days to 2 weeks to be ready to actually make bread with, but if you want to tell if it's ready, you can perform a float test. So after you have fed it and it seems active, you can put like a tablespoon in a jar of water, and if it sinks to the bottom, it's not ready, and if it rises to the top, it is ready. We don't do this though because we use whole wheat flour, and it will not work with that kind of flour. Mine took about 8 days to be ready to go since it's been so warm here. So now I'm going to share our favorite sourdough bread recipe with you. I like to feed my sourdough starter the night before making bread, but with this recipe, you could feed it right away in the morning and still have bread that night. To mix up your bread, put 475 grams of all-purpose flour, 100 grams of active sourdough starter, 325 grams of water, and 10 grams of salt into a large mixing bowl and stir to combine. If you do decide to feed your sourdough the morning that you are also making bread, make sure it has doubled in size and is very bubbly and active before you use it. You may have used almost all of your sourdough starter making your first batch of bread, but there's no need to worry here, it's totally okay. I'll show you guys how to replenish it in 1 minute. If you all are enjoying this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to share it with other people who have been wanting to start sourdough. Once you're done mixing all your ingredients together, cover with a towel and let rest for 30 minutes. Now it's time to replenish your sourdough starter. At this point, I would recommend using a rubber spatula to scrape down as much sourdough starter as you can off the sides of the jars. And then we're just gonna feed it what we took out. So I did 100 grams of flour and 100 grams of water. And I stirred it, covered it, and left it in a warm spot. Once your dough has rested for 30 minutes, it's time to perform some stretch and folds. So you're going to take one side of your dough and stretch it and then fold it over itself. Then you're going to turn your bowl a quarter turn and do this again. And you'll want to do this until you make a full circle around the dough. Then you're going to cover your bowl with a towel again, let it rest for 30 minutes, and then you're going to do this 2 more times. After your last set of stretch and folds, you want to cover with a damp towel and let the dough bulk ferment in a warm place until it's doubled in size. And this could be anywhere from like 5 to 8 hours. It may even be a little longer, especially because your sourdough starter is not very mature yet. So just keep an eye on it, and when it's doubled in size, then it's done. After your bread has doubled in size, put on a lightly floured surface upside down. So your nice looking side you want down. And then you're going to grab the sides together. We're going to shape our bread here. So you're just going to grab the sides together and pull them over towards the middle and pinch them together. Then you're going to put back in a floured bowl upside down. So you want your nice looking side down. And you're going to let it rest there for another 1 to 2 hours. About a half an hour to 45 minutes before you want to put your bread in the oven, make sure you start preheating your oven and your Dutch oven to 500 degrees. After your dough has been in the bowl for 1 to 2 hours, you're going to transfer it onto a sheet of parchment paper. This time you're going to put that smooth side that you put down in the bowl. That's going to be facing up. Then I'm going to dust the top of the bread with flour and I'm going to score it. Now you should really use a razor blade or something similar to score your bread, but all I had on hand at the time was a knife, so that's what I used. Once you're done scoring your dough, transfer the parchment paper with the dough on it to your Dutch oven and bake for 20 minutes. Then once that is done, you're going to carefully remove the lid and turn the oven temperature down to 475 and then bake another 15 to 25 minutes or until it's golden brown. Once it's done, it is best served fresh and you can slice and serve it however you like. If you want a recipe on sourdough in the bread machine, let me know in the comments, but for now, I have a recipe on traditional bread in the machine.